This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week, I'm going to talk to you about how to work with TAs. Now, when I'm talking about how to work with TAs, I'm talking about from the faculty or instructor perspective, working with people who are assisting you in your teaching responsibilities. So a TA is a teaching assistant, and this is going to be a student, either an undergraduate student or a graduate student, who is either employed or even taking a seminar type course in which they get this experience, who's going to be tasked with helping you in the classroom in lots of ways. For those of you who are students, if you go to graduate school in a psychology program, there's a pretty good chance at some point you'll be a graduate teaching assistant or a GTA. What you do as a TA and what you're going to have your TA do is going to vary depending on what you need for that course. But generally, they're going to assist you in teaching in all the ways. Now, this may be literally assisting you in teaching, where they're actually either doing some of or contributing to the classroom instruction. They might be helping teach a lab section, they might offer recitation sections or review sections, and all of those would be actual teaching that they would be doing. They also might do a lot of other things. They might create assignments, they might grade assignments, they might do other sorts of assessments in class for you. They might administer course materials, they might set up the learning management system that you have, they might create online announcements, they might email your class about different kinds of things. There's a lot of ways that they can contribute. TA experiences can be awesome. I know that my experiences as a TA were generally awesome. I like to think that I provide positive experiences for my TAs who work with me and collaborate with me in my classes. But to make them as awesome and as positive as we can, I'm going to give some recommendations for you today for how to work with your teaching assistants. My first recommendation is to treat your TA as an apprentice and even a collaborator. Being a TA is an excellent opportunity for professional development, especially if the individual is a TA who wants to go on to be an instructor or a teacher. If you have someone who is interested in being a teacher later on, being an instructor, being a college professor, making them a collaborator in all parts of course design and in all course practices is going to help them understand kind of what goes on behind the scenes about making a class excellent. I've talked in the past about undergraduate research collaborators being our future potential colleagues, and the students in our classes being our future potential colleagues. Your teaching assistant is not only a future potential colleague, they are a colleague. In that moment, they are collaborating with you in your teaching. So getting them involved in the decision-making process, the course design, and all course decisions is going to be something that's going to be professionally developing for you, but is also going to help you administer that class. My second recommendation is to make a contract with your TA. When I'm getting ready to work with a TA, right at the start of the semester, before the semester even begins, I'm going to list out what I think are going to be all the responsibilities that TA is going to have as part of my class that semester. And we're going to meet, we're going to talk, we're going to make them all clear, so that when we start collaborating on the course, we're both aware of what the expectations are. By having this conversation early, we're going to avoid misunderstandings. We're going to talk about things like how fast the grading is going to get done. We're going to talk about the kinds of feedback that students might provide. We might talk about options for them to teach. We might be talking about a class that I need to miss because I have a conference or some other commitment, and what we're going to do in lieu of me leading the classroom instruction that day. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this wonderful conversation, I hope, in which we're going to communicate about the course needs, and we're going to decide on some of them together. And we'll make it very clear to the extent that I can what they will be doing throughout that entire semester. When I see arguments come up or problems happen between a faculty member and the TA that they're working with, it is often because there's a misunderstanding of what the responsibilities are. It might be the case that when someone said, I wanted you to grade quickly, they had different definitions about what quickly is. One person thought that was 24 hours, the other person thought it was 72 hours. It might be when someone said you're going to assist in teaching, the person thought that meant setting up the tech equipment, the other person thought it meant giving lectures. So when we're having this conversation about responsibilities and about this contract, I'm going to recommend you be as clear as you can be about what you operationally mean by each of those responsibilities. I can think back to my first experiences as a TA where I was told to grade assignments that the instructors already provided some feedback on. So I got this stack of assignments and I was looking at these, and all of the assignments had smiley faces on them. So what I did is I thought, well, smiley face is good. I gave them all A's. The instructor was very upset with me because I gave all the students A's, and I said, but they all had smiley faces. And he said, yeah, but not all the smiley faces were underlined. For me, a little bit more of the communication about what that feedback meant would have helped me grade more effectively. So this communication ahead of time and proactively is going to make it a lot easier for you to collaborate in your course. I'm also going to recommend that when you talk about this contract and these responsibilities, that you not only tell what the TA is going to be doing, but why they're going to be doing it. When you're letting them know about what your teaching practices is and how this supports your teaching philosophy, why you're doing the assignments in this way, why you have these timelines, it's going to be easier for the TA to invest in those responsibilities. My third recommendation for working with a TA is to be cohesive as a team member with that TA. I'm going to try, both publicly and privately, to be cohesive lead team for each of the classes with me and my TA. We're going to have weekly points of contact at least outside of class to make sure that we're on the same page about course policies, course decisions, upcoming assignments, and responsibilities that are upcoming. So what we're going to do is make sure that we are together on our timeline, our philosophy, and our decisions. Being on the same page, being cohesive, this is going to make the experience not only more positive, it's going to make it more efficient. We're going to get things done better when we're working together. And I shouldn't even have to say this, but I will. But part of being a cohesive team with your TA is not throwing each other under the bus. You don't throw your TA under the bus in front of your students, and your TA doesn't throw you under the bus to the students either. And in case you're not sure what under the bus means, it means you do not disparage or blame the other member of your team for something in your class being a suboptimal. That is something that happens jointly and you work together. My fourth recommendation, working with a TA or really with anyone, is to understand that positive reinforcement is the best teacher. When your TA does something well, tell them they did it well and tell them what about it was good. By giving that positive reinforcement, by giving that feedback, you're inspiring them to continue to do it the way you want them to do it. On the flip side, when you have to give some more of that constructive feedback, make sure it's constructive and is going to lead to better behavior. When they change that trajectory, when they do it the way you want, more positive reinforcement. I think that positive reinforcement should be used all the time when it's deserved. My fifth recommendation is, to the extent that you can, fit the responsibilities to the strengths and goals of your TA. Now, I say this to the extent that you can because sometimes the stuff's just got to get done. So, for instance, you might have a TA that doesn't want to teach, that's not comfortable teaching, but teaching is part of the role. You might have to help and support there. But to the extent that you can, if there's something they really, really like, there's an area of interest they really, really have, try to capitalize on that and let them use those goals, those areas of knowledge to enhance your class. For instance, if I'm teaching general psychology and I have a student with a neuroscience background, that might be a wonderful way to give them an opportunity to give this section on brain function. What I'm doing there is I'm actually capitalizing on the expertise of a colleague, because that's how you want to see your TA in that situation. My sixth recommendation, and this kind of goes back to something I was saying a minute ago, but my sixth recommendation working with TA is use lots of feedback. And I mean this in two ways. Provide them feedback, but ask them for feedback for you too. So I mentioned feedback for them a minute ago. I mentioned positive reinforcement. Your TA is a colleague. Ask them, how did today's class go? Ask them, do you think this assessment is going to work well? Ask them, are there any revisions in our course policies that you think are appropriate? I often find at the end of every class, I ask my TA, how did that go? They might say, hey, that conversation you had about classical conditioning, I'm not sure they got it. And that might prime me to do a little bit of an overview at the start of next class to help support my students' learning and success. My seventh recommendation for working with a TA is to proactively anticipate student issues and problems. I find that I am much less effective when I have to be reactive to a student problem than I am when I can anticipate a student problem and prevent it from occurring in the first place. Prevention is always better than intervention. Your TA can help you anticipate those student issues and concerns. Some of these issues might be kind of that mid-semester lag, right? That grumpy time of the semester that we're all going into. Some of those problems might come from a difficult assignment that is coming up. Some of those problems may come from a lot of responsibilities happening all at the end of the semester. Using your TA and their experience as students can help us mitigate some of those issues. My eighth recommendation for working with a TA is to realize that almost all the time, your TA is a student too. Be aware that your class as a TA is not the only thing in your life. You've probably heard me say before that one of the things we should be doing as an empathetic instructor is to realize that our students in our classes have other personal and professional challenges going on at the same time they're taking our class. This is also true for our TA. So realizing that their employment as a TA is important and it is something we want them to have as a priority and something they will invest in, it is not the only thing that they're doing. So understanding that they have a conference coming up here, understanding they have their own midterms here, and making adjustments to allow for your TA to be successful in those other responsibilities is something that I would like you to do. I talk a lot about peace, preparation, expertise, authenticity, caring, and engagement. I bring peace to my classes, or at least I try really hard to bring peace to my classes. I'm also going to bring peace to my TA so my TA can bring peace to my classes. My 9th recommendation for working with a TA is to understand that even though you are on a team, as the instructor of record, it's ultimately on you. Ultimately, the success of the course is on you. Ultimately, the course decisions are on you. Your TA is a collaborator, your TA is a colleague, your TA is going to be informative, but you need to accept the responsibility that comes with being instructor of record. Accept that and do not blame anything that failed in your course on the TA. Ultimately, it's on you. Having said that, I think that if we use a lot of the recommendations we've talked about, we're going to have great relationship with those TAs, we're going to have clear communication, we're going to have expectations that are reasonable, they're going to know what their responsibilities are, and our class is going to rock. When I look back at some of my favorite experiences in teaching, it's been working with the wonderful TAs that I've had over the course of my career. And I highly recommend you work with TAs and you set up experiences that are going to be awesome for you and awesome for them. In the comments below, I would love to hear about your experiences both as TAs and also in working with TAs, and in particular, things that you've done to make those experiences successful and positive for you and your TAs. Thank you for watching this episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.